My name is Wendy Garflip, and I'm from United Neighbors of Fall River. United Neighbors, along with Greater Fall River Partners for a Healthier Community, have put together the Suicide Prevention Coalition, and we're delighted to be sponsoring this event tonight. I think a little background as to why this whole thing came about is a good way to start. So we never had any suicide prevention work in a coalition in this community, and we began talking about it with Anne-Marie Matulis, who's in the back of the room by the video camera. She is from the Bristol County. Give me your title, Anne-Marie.
Director of the Bristol County Regional Coalition for Suicide Prevention.
Right. So there was a Suicide Prevention Coalition in New Bedford. There was one, I think, in Attleboro, maybe, or Taunton. Right, or Taunton. And we didn't have one, and we began to have some conversations in December of last year. And then in January, a 14-year-old Fall River girl completed suicide. And all of a sudden, it put the entire concept into a much sharper focus for us. And we had our first conversation last spring, I think, or last winter, at the Blessed Trinity Church, and we had an opportunity to hear from people who were survivors of suicide and people whose family members attempted suicide or completed suicide, and we had an opportunity as a community to begin to talk about it. And as we've moved forward with this work, we've picked up so many different partners. Child and Family Service, Barbara Beckman, sitting here, has been along with us from the very beginning. And we now have the domestic violence people from the New Bedford Women's Center as part of us, Silver Faria Funeral Home. So we're delighted that we're bringing together this coalition of organizations to begin to talk about the problems that we have. What have we done so far? So we've been able to train 8 different individuals in the community, 3 adjustment counselors, 2 police officers, and 2 residents on the ASSIST training, which is a 2-day suicide prevention training. We've been able to establish in both Diamond and Durfee High School, they will be doing the Signs of Suicide inventory for every 9th grader twice a year. And we're working to have that happen also in Bishop Conley and in Resiliency Academy. We'd like to see that as well. We've been able to come together to create a mission statement. And right now we're in the midst of finishing up training for every single firefighter in the city of Fall River, and they're going to be trained on 2 different levels. On the first level, the training that they get is simply because they are the first responders and they are the ones that walk in the door, and the trauma of coming across someone who has either attempted suicide or completed suicide takes a great toll on people as individuals, especially first responders who see it over and over and over again. And we also know that firefighters are in the group of most at risk for attempting suicide and completing suicide. So they're getting this 2-level training to help them be able to do their job better and to be able to deal with their own issues as well. So we're very excited about it. Child and Family Service had training for your entire staff as well, which is great, and that's one of the things we're attempting to do. We have all information on how you can join the coalition and find out more about it. If you can't make our meetings, you're more than welcome to be on the listserv, and on the listserv we'll be able to at least get the minutes and find out what's going on and find out information as we move forward. Other than telling you that she's an amazing human being and has written a book that touched me so much, I will let her tell the rest of the story. And after Gabrielle speaks, hopefully we'll have some time for questions. So thank you all for coming, and Gabrielle, the floor is yours.
We were hoping that we would have a full house, and I would say this is exactly that. This is a full house. Thank you so much for coming, and I say welcome to you. I would also like to have a couple of thank yous of my own before I begin, if that's okay with you. The first is, I don't know if Deb Allard is here. She may not be here, but I would just like to say thank you to Deb Allard because she did a really wonderful piece about the coalition, but also about myself and my book and how it's speaking here tonight. And I would like to thank her. She's a very talented reporter and very articulate. And so wherever she is, thank you, Deb. My greatest thank you goes to the coalition. I am an adopted child now of the coalition, and I've never felt more like I've been part of the family as I have felt in the last couple of months. It is a privilege to have been able to begin working with them, and it's even more so of an honor that I'm standing in front of you talk about something that's extremely important. So I thank the coalition for bringing me into their part of the world and giving me all of these new chances, and also to contribute because of my own experience. What I'd like to start with your permission, is I'd like to read a paragraph from my book. It's very short, and it's a quote from somebody I know very, very well, who has been intimately associated with suicide in their life. And I'm going to read that paragraph to you now. Sometimes a moment arrives when you are so unprepared for what follows that your mind just stops. Everything you know with certainty is simply washed right out of your brain. A sort of paralysis, if you will. It is replaced by messages so incomprehensible that it requires Herculean strength just to move your eyes. Suicide. The loss of someone we love by their own hand. At the moment of impact, it becomes crystal clear that we are not going to survive this. We can't even say the word. I am certain that there are people out here in this audience that are possibly survivors of suicide loss. That is a person who survives the loss of someone that they love, or very close to them, someone near and dear, to suicide. And we are the ones that are left behind. I'm sure there are other people in this room have maybe contemplated suicide at some time. Or maybe you've even attempted suicide and were somehow stopped by the grace, by an intervention, by someone you know, or even yourself, or some small incident that turned your mind around. And I also know that many of you may think that if you're not that close to suicide, or if you've not been that adjacent to someone who's taken their life, that you may think that maybe this is a good opportunity to learn some things, but that not necessarily as convinced that you are able to do anything about it. I'm here to ask you to rethink that. Because in your neighborhoods, in your small community, in this greater community, at your workplace, there are people there who you see every single day, or you talk to frequently, and perhaps they are socially slipping, they're distracted, they're angry, they're negative, they're depressed, they're reckless. And given those individual things, we may not really understand that there's something to be concerned about, or something that should be drawing our attention, but maybe there is. Who I am, and why this book has come to be. My name is Gabrielle Doucette, and I am a survivor of suicide loss. In 2011, my 41-year-old son, Drew, took his own life, and we were blindsided. I had no idea this was coming. That isn't always the case, but I will say, in our case, we were unprepared. Was he depressed? Not that I knew of. Was he reckless? Possibly. Was he distracted? Sometimes. But what he left behind is what we don't understand why he left. He had an incredible job. He had 2 beautiful children, an incredibly beautiful and loving wife, a fabulous home, and the best job I can imagine. And yet, on a night in April, he decided that this was not where he could be any longer. I and nosedive. And just like that paragraph I read to you, this is what happens in tragic loss. And we're going to talk about more, I'm going to talk about more than suicide loss. I'm going to talk about loss in general. Because loss comes in all kinds of forms. It comes in every shape and color. We never ever know what tragic loss will do to us. I found out that my loss, which happens to be suicide loss, is probably the worst thing I will ever go through in my lifetime. But everybody has a loss that takes place, and some of our losses are so profound that they completely do what that paragraph says, that they paralyze you. What I'd like to do tonight is talk about loss in general, but suicide in particular. Because number one, suicide is a very important focus in every community, but especially so in yours. But secondly, I would like to have people think in terms of what not suicide, but what loss does to your body. So that one of the other things that I am is I'm a trained nurse. I spent all of my life in medicine. So I understand the body. I get it. I know what goes on there when it's running good, and I know what goes on when it's not running so good. And for people in loss, the tendency for our bodies to not run well is very powerful. And what happened to me was when I lost my son Drew, I went into a very harsh hole, and my body started to respond to what I couldn't seem to get up. It was a downward spiral. Was I depressed? I was absolutely depressed. Was I afraid and angry? You got it. Did I like it in there? I hated it. I didn't know what I was going to do with myself to get out of it, but what I found was it was easier to stay there than it was to come out, because it was familiar. I could be mad. I could feel bad for myself and for my life, but that hole was not helping me have my life back. So after about a year and a half of deciding that something was going to have to be done for me, I came out of that place by using some tools that I actually had designed before Drew left the planet. What I did in my past was that I would counsel people who had had loss. I counseled people who had diseases, acute and chronic diseases. I counseled people who had pain from both disease or from anguish from some loss that they were experiencing. People who had lost their job. People who had lost their relationships. And so what I did was I developed some tools and I helped them think about new ways to deal with these losses that they had. I did not replace medicine. I worked with medicine. The doctors were there to help them. Their counselors were there. They had groups that they went to that were always supportive. There were medications that they took. I worked as an adjunct to those. And so I counsel people on these 7 to 11 tools. Now picture the fact that I've lost Drew and I'm in the hole. And all of a sudden it occurred to me that I was not walking the talk at all. I was teaching people how to help themselves and to heal their bodies, and I was being successful at it, and I was going down a tunnel. So I decided to walk the talk, and I started working with my own tools, and it made a difference in my life. And that's when I decided to write the book. Now when the book came out, we're going to talk about a lot of things here tonight. By the way, this is a conversation, and at some point you can bring that conversation back to me, because if you've got a question, I've probably experienced it, so feel free to ask anytime you like. So after the book came out, a strange thing happened. It wasn't out 2 weeks, And I had people calling me up and they said, you know, Gabrielle, your book focuses on suicide. But if you cover up that word, suicide, on your front cover, right about here, the Survivors of Loss Healing Handbook. Aha, I've been missing something. It's suicide is important to me, but loss is important to everybody else that hasn't experienced my loss. Their loss was every bit as profoundly affecting them physically and emotionally as mine was affecting me. It was an aha moment. Everybody has loss. Everybody experiences loss. Some of it is tragic. And what do we do when we experience tragic loss that is physically hurting us because we can't deal with it? I have this mantra that I like now. It's called, if you bury it, you carry it. If you bury loss by not looking at it, you carry it. Every organ in your body carries it. If you push it down and you don't look at it and don't deal with it, it starts to hurt you. And being the nurse that I am, can't help myself, I'm going to start looking at the bodies of people and how they're being deprived of good health and happiness and joy again. These are only to remind me what not to forget. So there's a lot of different kinds of loss. I'm going to name a few and just see how they feel to you. And not one of them is going to be suicide loss. Loss of your mobility. Loss of your self-esteem. Loss of your cognitive function. Loss of the person that you thought you were going to be with for the rest of your life. Loss of control. Loss of your job. Loss of your livelihood. Loss of your freedom. Are those losses? They're horrendous losses. Horrendous losses. Every bit as big and as powerful and as tragic as my suicide was. I had a woman a few months ago. I was doing a workshop in Rhode Island, and I went through the 7 tools with everybody. And we talked about them, and it was a great session. And afterwards, people always come up and they say, well, you know, I have some questions and I do some clarification. And then there was this one woman hanging in the background, and she was just waiting. And after everybody else had gotten their questions answered, she came up to me and she said, you know, I lost my mother just under 2 years ago from an incurable disease. She was my best friend. She knew me better than anybody else. She went everywhere with me. We talked about everything. And I couldn't stop what was happening to her with her incurable illness. And when I lost her, I am profoundly in trouble. I cannot recover. I don't know what to do to recover. One of your tools can help me. And she says, but I must say, and this is the part that was the sledgehammer to the forehead. She said to me, I know I lost my mother, but it's nothing in comparison to you losing your son through suicide. And it almost broke my heart. Because it said, that is so untrue. I can't have you thinking that. That loss of my son, Drew, is my loss. But your loss of your mother is every bit as painful and every bit as sad and every bit as profoundly difficult as mine is. There's one difference. There's only one difference between your loss and mine, and it's the word stigma. That's the difference between many losses and my loss. There's a stigma attached that we don't see almost anywhere else. And that's something that I'd like to talk to you about today. The stigma that is associated with suicide. What is this? We feed it. We propagate it. We keep throwing it under the table, and we don't bring it out and look at it. We don't have a conversation with people about it. Remember I said at the beginning? We can't even say the word. We can't even say the word. For a year and a half, people would come up to me and say, so how's your family doing? How's Julie? I would look at them and I'd say, I lost Julie. Oh, I'm so sorry, what happened? I can't talk about that. That's what I would say, I can't talk about that. That word is stuck, right? For a year and a half. So we have to learn to bring this stigma off of suicide, off of many losses that have things attached to them. But right now, let's talk about that. The stigma that we propagate, the stigma that we keep under the table, the stigma that we avoid. The numbers. I'm going to give you some data that shock you. Really. In America today, we have documented 40,000 suicides a year. That's documented. It is underinflated because they can't collect all the data to be sure that some death was a suicide. So we have an underinflated number of 40,000, which to me is horrendous. Anyway. Secondly, it's 1 million over the planet. 1 million suicides a year over the planet. Again, underinflated. Another statistic they cannot collect, which is attempted suicides. They're kind of not even documented within the hospitals or the fire stations because no one wants to identify them as a possible self-harm. So you have this uninflated 40,000, which is, and then padding that up should be all the suicides that don't look like a suicide. Ahead of that, right at the front of that number are those who have addictions, are opioids, are drug addictions, because these individuals often, their lives are so complex and so difficult that they have the drugs and they are exhausted. So what can happen is, I can't do this anymore, and it becomes an overdose. That is not a documented suicide. An overdose is not. Because they can't tell you what it is. Some other numbers, but for every person that completes suicide, we call them a suicide victim, they're like a drop in the water. This big drop, and these rings come out from them. Remember I said before, if you don't think you really have a connection to suicide, I need you to rethink that. Those rings come out, and they just keep right on going to distant shores. Every single person in the room is going to be touched by it at some time. But that first drop, and that first ring, there are about 8 to 10 people who are immediately changed for all time. Their lives are never, ever going to be the same. And those are the paralyzed 8 to 10 people in that family, in that community, that close to that individual. So now, let's do the math. 40,000 across America, and for every one of those 40,000, there are 10 people who are desperate for help, desperate to get through this terrible crisis. That's 400,000 people in America a year who are suicide survivors, like myself. Another statistic, suicide survivors like me are twice as likely to contemplate suicide in their family. Mostly happened once, and I'm feeling pretty lost. Nurses. 1 in 5 nurses are clinically depressed because of the difficulties and the stresses of their job. 1 in 5. Of doctors and nurses, here's a statistic for you, 2.5 to 4 times likely to take their own life. Doctors and nurses. That's huge. Finally, the military. I don't know about you, but I am struck by, heralded by the fact that in the military, by the way, they don't like to talk about this. They don't want to bring out some of their facts about their own personnel because it's just not what the military does. But every day, 22 to 24 currently active or inactive military personnel take their own life. So in this hour, when you and I are sitting together, somebody in the military has taken their life in America.
I just wanted to say something. Our youngest son is currently serving in the Navy, and there is a complaint. They actually had a young girl who jumped off the back of the ship, and it's called Out of the Darkness. So I just wanted to let you know, it's not that. They're ignoring it.
They are.
I think there's a ton of work to do, but it's happening. And he's right now deployed on the USS Eisenhower, and the whole fleet did an entire day of talking about it, what you can do, who you can go to, and that's what they called it, Out of the Darkness.
Out of the
So I
darkness.
just wanted to let you know, it
Yes.
is, at least in the Navy, I can't speak for the other branches of the military, but it is being acknowledged.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
They're making, I think, obviously big gains, because who knows how many they touch in a positive way just by that one day.
Absolutely. And you're saying this is focused on in the Navy right now?
Yes.
Good. Because I'm going to find out more about that because that's important. We have to understand how difficult it is for our veterans, for our military. Thank you very much for telling that. Somebody else say something here? Awesome. Out of the darkness?
Out of the Darkness.
Yes. Okay. Military is getting a hold on it. At least in the Navy. We love that.
When we had our first coalition meeting, Anne Marie came and was talking to us about all the things that are going on in the county. And afterwards, one of the people who chose to be in the coalition said to me, "Oh, it was great, but did you have to say the word suicide so many times?" And we ourselves were so startled, it took me a while to get the words out of my mouth comfortably, and I sometimes have to think about it. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about the stigma that comes with this. And I think this is the same stigma we see now with the opioid crisis, and we see it with alcoholism. So how do we get past the stigma?
How we get past stigma. This is one of the ways I think we can get past stigma. And that is, let's name the elephant in the room, first of all. And it is an elephant. I mean, you were mentioning, Wendy, about this 14-year-old girl, and all of a sudden everybody says, "Oh, how can that be? That doesn't happen here." Well, of course it does. And because we haven't named it, we haven't brought it out, and we keep putting it under the table, it becomes this elephant. I can remember times when I would finally decide I could socially go somewhere and talk to people, and they would say, "What happened to Drew?" And I said, "Okay, I'm going to say it. Drew took his own life. He completed suicide." You would have thought that my breath was bad. They cleared the room. They just went in every single direction. front of a group the first time and look at people and say, my son Drew, at 41, completed suicide. It was like, it took all of that off of my shoulders. I was able to stand. And so the beginning is, let's name the elephant in the room. He's taken up a lot of space anyway. We can't even move around him, and he can no longer get under the table. So let's name the elephant. Another thing we can do is we can declare suicide and attempted suicide as the possibility of self-harm is a living, breathing element of our society. It's here, and it's propagated not only by the fact we can't talk about it, and I'm not blaming any of us for not being able to talk about it. I'm just saying we have to get over not being talked about it, but it's really part of our society. It's a societal issue, it's a technological issue, and it's an environmental issue. So if we can look past the fact that our society helps to contribute to it, then we can start to find ways to overcome it. Or better yet, even better, is realize that suicide is the end game of all the stuff that has taken place ahead. And that is, how do we see mental health? How do we see what is good mental health? How do we actually face the fact that we have a stigma around a lot of things, and it begins over here. It begins with mental health. If I had a mental illness and I was on medication with it, I can understand how people want to cower. They don't want to say what's wrong with them. But part of that reason why they can't speak up, why they don't use their voice, is because we've all decided that that isn't a talkable issue to begin with. We need to talk about the issue. We need to say the words. That's one way of handling the stigma that exists here. Don't let it be stigma anymore. You know, I was thinking before I kind of got my notes together for speaking with you, I said, okay, let me think of this. I'm a nurse. I know this stuff. Look at all of these diseases that we don't fully understand yet. I mean, we haven't got cancer all wrapped up in a nice package. We don't understand fibromyalgia. We don't understand polymyalgia. This is really painful stuff. Very painful. Cancer can be very painful. Injuries can be painful. You know, broken bones, accidents, trauma, painful. It hurts, folks. Guess what? The pain that Drew was experiencing before he took his life was pain. It was painful. No different pain. It's just in a different space. It's just in a different location. That's the only difference. And there's such a deception around it that he couldn't speak about it to anybody. But it was no different than some of the pain that we are trying to understand in any other disease. So let's understand this one being as painful as it is. He said to me, and actually he said to his sister one day, he says, you know me. You see what I do and what I say by this much. You see 1% of me, Emma, because 99% I never showed to you. I had this photograph. I think it's a photograph, but it's hard to say. I've owned it for about 30 years, and maybe some of you have seen it. There's this visualization of both above the water and below the water. It's like a photograph. And it shows an iceberg. Have you seen it? The small jagged point above the water level. And right at the water level and below is the rest of the iceberg that is the size of a small country. 1%, 99. That is what people with mental health, people with depression, people with the stigma of mental illness are constantly walking around. 1% showing, 99% not showing. don't get heard. The voices that are afraid to speak, and the voices that can no longer speak, like Drew. I am Drew's voice. I will be his voice for as long as I can. But at the same time, I really want others to understand that there are other losses out there that keep us from speaking our voices. And mental illness and mental health is one of the big ones. Would you agree?
I see Selena from the Department of Mental Health sitting here shaking her head.
Okay.
I absolutely agree, and I've also done, individual and family therapy, and it is true. And the department actually, their campaign is it all begins with conversation, and that's, to kind of eliminate the stigma, that you have to talk about it to make changes, and it doesn't change unless you do it.
Give it a name. And also give it the compassion that it's supposed to have. We feel real, real bad when people are hurting in a hospital with a broken leg. How bad do we feel when someone's mind is hurting really badly?
I think with that too, and one of the things I was thinking is that in your description, how people kind of move away. And they do. But I also think it's because they don't know what to say. Or they're afraid to say the wrong thing. Or they're, concerned that they'll make the scene, worse than what it is. And so I think that is, yeah.
I thoroughly agree. And another one of the topics that I do talk about, and I know Amy would remember this, and there are some things that are good for people to know who talk to people in tragic loss and suicide loss. And one of the things is just that, I don't know what to say. Best thing you can do is say, I don't know what to say, but I really support you. I really do.
It's interesting, in death and dying, which is also something that we have a lot of discomfort with, we have some prescribed things that we know what to do based on whatever practice we have. We know that we greet the family after the funeral, we know that there's, so we sort of have a routine and that gets us through it. There's no routine there, there's no correct way or there's no ritual connected to it. And I think that that's part of the problem, that we search for something that will not only give you comfort as the survivor, but give us comfort as the person that's part of that ripple effect.
Exactly. I'd like to, if I could, I think my time is okay. I'd like to give you 2 tools. I have 7 that I have in my book, but I'd like to introduce just 2 of them for you to kind of understand what are some of the things that saved me, and they're not magic bullets. They're things that we have every single day that we use and do and understand, but never realize how healthy these things are. The first one I'm going to give you is the basis of all things for getting better when you're in loss or anything, is intention. Now, people can say, intention, I can look that up in the dictionary and come up with something, but I'm going to tell you what really intention is for those of us who suffer some loss, for those of us who are dealing with really difficult situations. And intention is set into words, very personal words, something you want to achieve or be or become. Because intention is a commitment that you make to yourself for one small step of achievement. One. An intention is something you're working on, but you've not yet worked it out. But you're going to give it a shot. And it's very measurable. And it involves your emotions, it involves your thoughts, and it involves your mindset, not your muscles. A small, lighted step that's measurable, that you can say, I did it, or I didn't quite do it this time. And I'm going to give you an example of an intention. First, I want to say, I know people will say, well, gee, isn't that like an affirmation? And the answer is no, not quite. An affirmation is pretty big, and you can go online and get a whole bunch of them that somebody else made up for you. But an intention is just for you because it's your issue. It's your step that you need to make. And my intention, when I was trying to get out of this hole, I will say that the two things that are a problem for the rest of our lives as survivors of suicide loss, one is guilt, and the other one is why. Guilt doesn't belong to you. It never belonged, it doesn't belong to anybody who is a survivor of suicide loss. It's a presumed thing. It's not real. But I had it, and so does everybody else who's a survivor of suicide loss. So what I did is I set an intention, and this is how small it can be. My intention was that I will, for 1 hour every day, be guilt-free. Guilt-free. I created this environment in which I would have no guilt for 1 hour every single day. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But I set the intention. And one day, I was able to spend 1 hour in which I did not feel guilty because I kept that right out of the way. Now, I allowed guilt to come right back in as soon as that hour was over, but I kept at it, and it was measurable. And if I made that hour, I congratulated myself. And if I didn't chide myself for it. I'm going to do it tomorrow. And I did it the next day. And then I did it the day after that. And pretty soon I was doing it every day for a couple of hours a day. And within weeks, I was really becoming guilt-free because I realized guilt was not mine, where Jill was concerned. It was not my guilt. And I stand before you, a person who does not have guilt. And the joy in my life, because of that, is because of that. That was my intention. That's how small your intention can be. It's a beautiful thing. The second one I'd like to tell you about, and this one's fun, because I'm going to mention it and something's going to happen. Deep breathing. How many of you are out there taking a deep breath because I said something? Right? See? Yeah, I can stand in front of you and this is what I see. Nobody's deep breathing up to that. So what happens is, why do I say deep breathing? Let me tell you. I'm still a nurse, so all of these statistics hang with me. If you're 150 pounds, this thing between your ears, this organ, brain, is actually 2% of your body. So that means if you're 150 pounds, your brain weighs about 3.5 pounds. 3.5 pounds against 150? Great. Not very heavy. You don't walk around with that. Do you know that every breath you take, 20% of the air goes here? That 3.5 pounder takes up 1/5 of the air that comes into your lungs. Shock you? Shock me. So if I don't deep breathe, I am cheating myself of a whole lot of good energy and nutrition that's going right up here. And the other thing is, more than 90% of the time, we shallow breathe. Shallow breathe. And the only reason why any of you took a deep breath out is because I said something. All the rest of the time is there. We do it all day long. So if you want to make good decisions, if you want to handle the trigger points that people hit you when you go out there and they talk about your loss, they ask you questions about your loss. The trigger points that they would hit me when I'd go out to the grocery store and they would say something, the first thing I'll do is I'll take a deep breath. So I will make them wait until I get my deep breath. The whole world can wait until you deep breathe because you are changing the nutrition and the effect of your body for staying healthy. not be here if Drew hadn't died. I am grateful that I had him for 41 years. I am not ungrateful because I don't have him anymore. I had him for 41 years. And I am grateful to be here in front of you. So I want to close with saying to you, we're going to make a change in the stigma of loss, and specifically suicide loss, and specifically mental health. Can we please finally stand up and say the word? We need to say it. Thank you so much.
On behalf of the Suicide Prevention Coalition of Fall River, I'd like to thank Gabrielle Doucette. And she will be here. She has some books if you're interested, and she's here to speak as well. I was remiss in not mentioning Tracy Ibbotson in St. Anne's Hospital, who's been a founding member of our Suicide Coalition as well. My apologies, but you're always there for us, sometimes in the corner though, so that's but it certainly helps promote the backbone. So just a couple of things, just some stats. In Bristol County, since January, we have had 44 suicides. We've had 11 in Fall River and 3 in Swansea. The most at-risk group are white men between the ages, correct me if I'm wrong, 30 and 50, Anne Marie? 30 and 50? So that is one of our areas that we certainly need to focus on. What do we do from here? So we have a couple of things. First off, there's some paperwork here, how to get in contact with us. We would love to send you for training, because the more people that can say the word and talk to people who are having these thoughts and these ideas and need this support, the more we can improve our community. So if you're interested in being trained, we will find a place to send you, and we will find a way to pay for it to train. The second thing is we have our friends here from the Samaritans, and we hope to continue to be connected at the hip to the Samaritans, because these are the people that are on the front lines. And you can also volunteer for their organization so that you can answer phones and you can support other people in the work that they're doing and reaching out to our community to try and make it a better place. So we thank you all for coming. We thank the Y for offering their place, and incredible thanks for Gabrielle. I can't imagine what it's like to be able to talk about this. I guess that's what we all have to strive for, the comfort in being able to talk about it. And talk about it and you touched me, and I'm certain that you touched other people in the audience. So thank you.
If you have any questions whatsoever, and you don't want to raise your hand and ask them, I'll be sitting right here. You're welcome to come and ask me privately, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Anybody have any questions they want to ask publicly? Bristol County DA also has a tremendous amount of resources available to take, and Eric is here if you want to ask him about it. The more we learn, the better our community is going to be. So thank you all. Drive safely, and we'll see you next time.